Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So, the person who began all of this, where it all started, Lia Thomas. Lia Thomas is back, and back with a vengeance. Lia wants to compete in Paris 2024. Lia doesn't see why somebody who is the NCAA women's champion isn't allowed to compete in the Olympics. And, you know, some people will say, yeah, if you are the women's NCAA champion, you've qualified with the times and everything, why shouldn't you be able to compete in the Olympics? And this is what Lia is going to argue at arbitration. So World Aquatics, they banned transgender athletes in the women's category, but they opened a whole new category for them especially, an open category for anybody who wants to identify as whatever they want to identify as to compete in. None of them showed up to the 2023 Swimming World Cup in Berlin. Not one trans athlete showed up. You know why? Because they don't want their open category. They want to compete in the women's category. That's what validates them. That's what gives them the attention that they so desperately crave. Crushing women, crushing the biological females in sports is all they want. What they were unable to achieve while competing against men, they want to now go on to achieve as women. The sense of entitlement. They will not stop until they have ruined women's sports. There are already records that will never be broken again by a female unless they're doping and cheating in the same manner. And you know who is responsible for this? NCAA. NCAA swimming, they're the ones who have allowed this. No wonder Lia is wondering, why can't I compete in Paris? You crowned Lia the women's champion. So Lia has come to collect.
Are there Olympics in your future?
It's been a goal of mine to swim at Olympic trials for a very long time, and I would love to see that through.
So Lia Thomas isn't going to stop until the World Aquatics basically allows transgender athletes to compete in the women's category. They're not interested in an open category. So I don't want to hear anything about inclusion, because an open category is very inclusive. That's a brand new category created just for you so that everybody can be happy, so that everybody can compete, and even gives such athletes opportunities that they were unable to attain while competing in a category that's in line with their biological sex, that everyone else has to do. We all have to compete in the category that falls in line with our biological sex, that falls in line with our age. I can't just become English schools champion in athletics tomorrow. Actually, I probably wouldn't even beat the teenagers. The teenagers will probably be faster than me, but you know what I mean. I can't just go enter some junior competition and crush them and then crown myself champion, because I have to be in line with reality. But apparently that doesn't apply to certain people. So transgender swimmer Lia Thomas mounted a secret legal fight to overturn ban with sights on Olympics. I'm telling you, internationally, these sporting bodies don't play. There'll be a heavy price to pay if the women's Olympic record was crushed by a transgender athlete. That would be a heavy price to pay. It has international consequences, international implications. If an American team had essentially a man in the women's category, America would be accused of cheating, and rightly so. China will have something to say about it. Germany would have something to say about it. Nigeria would have something to say about it. So they know what they're doing, these international bodies. They know what they're doing. Controversial transgender swimmer Lia Thomas is taking secret legal action in a bid to overturn a ban on biological males competing alongside women, and hopes to take part in the Paris Olympic trials, according to a report. Thomas, 24, has hired a Canadian law firm, Thai, to ask Court of Arbitration for Sport in Switzerland to overturn the rules imposed by World Aquatics after she became the first openly trans person to win an ACAA Division 1 title, the Telegraph reported. So Lia hasn't competed since 2022, when the World Aquatics introduced the rules that prohibited anyone who has undergone any part of male puberty from the female category. And obviously, I don't agree with this whole, if you transitioned after the age of 12, then you can't compete, in the female category. I think any male needs to be banned. I don't care whether there's advantages or not. I'm not even going down that route anymore. Obviously, there are advantages. This is a 6'4" male who crushed the women. Shout out to Riley Gaines, who tied with Lia though. But generally, Thomas dominated the NCAA swimming that year. Dominated. Clearly, there are advantages. And we know that these athletes weren't achieving what they went on to achieve. Lia didn't become the men's NCAA champion. I wonder why. And of course, Lia hasn't competed since 2022 because Lia is not interested in the open category. So they were previously allowed to compete if they lowered their testosterone levels, which seems to be the common theme with a lot of these federations now. If you lower your testosterone levels, apparently that makes you a woman. And then Thai describes its staff as fearless advocates who have been involved in high stakes and precedent-setting cases. But those brought before the CAS are controversially heard behind closed doors, unless those involved agree to publicize them, according to the outlet. So this legal action was supposed to have began in September last year. And this is after USA Swimming actually made their guidelines more stricter when it came to transgender athletes. They were more strict when it came to testosterone levels. And I get the impression that Lia wasn't happy with these stricter guidelines. And that's also has a lot to do with why Lia stopped competing that year. And World Aquatic sought to have the legal proceedings thrown out because Lia was subject to USA swimming rules. So speaking to Good Morning America, Lia said, "It's been a goal of mine to swim at Olympic trials for a very long time, and I would love to see that through." And the fact is, Lia was able to aim for that because Lia decided to identify as a woman. William Thomas decided that, he wants to be successful in swimming. What better way to do that than to identify as a woman? Something that you already have some sort of fetish in doing, according to the evidence we've seen on, Instagram. Lia had no problem posting all of this graphic, images that point towards autogynephilia. Not only are you able to live out your fetish in the locker rooms, undressing in front of the young women there, you were also able to gain titles, prize money, accolades, attention, all on account of your fetish. And this is what they want to subject the female athletes to, even at Olympic level, potentially.
Transgender swimmer Lia Thomas said to be taking new legal action against World Aquatics, challenging a rule that bans biological males from competing against women. The apparent goal to compete at the Paris Olympics come this summer. Clay Travis, Outkick founder, with me now. Clay, nice to see you. It's been a minute. Nice to have you back on. She appealed this, and based on what I understand here, you go to the Court of Arbitration, which governs these bodies with athletics. And in 2022, the World Aquatics changed its policy so transgender women can only compete if they've completed their transition by the age of 12. That does not apply to Lia Thomas. So how are they going to take this case?
Yeah, well, first of all, I don't even like that rule, right? Because some people are going to cite it as evidence of why you should start transing when you're 11 and 10 years old before you even hit puberty, which is just, I think, absolutely crazy. I mean, most people out there I know don't let their 12-year-old pick every meal that they eat because of what that would lead to. I mean, I've got a 13-year-old. If I let him pick every meal, he'd have pizza for every meal. And there's probably a lot of people out there who say, hey, that sounds pretty good. But I think, again, you got to balance that out. This is part and parcel, Bill, of the craziness here. And the fact that the NCAA allowed Lia Thomas to compete and become a champion, a women's champion, to change the record books, help to set the precedent that this is acceptable, and it isn't.
Yeah, first of all, it's encouraging these parents to transition their children, before the age of 12. Apparently, An 11-year-old can consent. An 11-year-old that you wouldn't even trust to choose their meals every night, because a lot of them will want to have cookies for dinner. But it's apparently supposed to understand all the implications of puberty blockers, hormones, and these sporting bodies are encouraging transitioning before the age of 12 with these guidelines. It's bad enough that we have USA Boxing essentially encouraging castration. You know, if you go through with the surgery, you can go and crush the women.
I give credit to Riley Gaines and other female athletes who have spoken out about how crazy this is, but Lia Thomas hasn't been hiding any of this. The expectation has been that this would be the attempt, that Lia believes that he is in fact a woman and should be able to compete as a women's champion, despite the fact that Lia is 6'4", over 200 pounds, fully grown man who decided to identify as a woman after already beginning as a men's swimmer at the University of Pennsylvania. And remember, ESPN said that Lia Thomas was a Women's Athlete of the Year. The University of Pennsylvania nominated Lia Thomas as a Women's Athlete of the Year. Everyone in sports, by and large, who is in positions of authority and power, has tried to countenance and encourage this, from in the NCAA to ESPN to the University of Pennsylvania. All of them, I think, have gotten it wrong, and we'll see whether or not the Olympics are willing to do what's right and keep Lia from competing as a woman.
And we shall, and I mean, the Olympics would be the biggest stage globally. We can all agree on that. I was watching a transgender golfer about a week or two ago, and I mean, she whipped the field. And
the insisting on using she is just, I'll never ever get my head around that. These organizations, these news outlets, they insist on saying she.
I mean, it wasn't even close. And
Bill,
maybe
Clay, you and I bet, are not great golfers, right? They have women's tees.
Yeah, I like to think that I can compete, but not well. My point is, maybe for those who agree with the opinion you just stated, maybe this is what the world needs to see. On a big stage like this, you know, an athlete of that physical ability just running laps literally around biological women.
I can't even believe that we are having this conversation. And Bill, I think this is important too, because people say, why do you even talk about this? Why does this even get brought up? A man is trying to become an Olympic women's swimming champion and has already become an NCAA women's champion. Right. Yeah. Lia Thomas's name now is in the books. I mean, I feel like, you know, South Park has the Randy Savage voiced character who decides to identify as a woman with a beard and go out and win championships everywhere. That's happening. And you mentioned golf, and I apologize for insulting your golf game. It's way better than mine, Bill. But look, you have women's tees for a reason. The idea that men are not bigger, stronger, and faster than women, it doesn't mean that every man is bigger, stronger, and faster than every woman. But at the apex of athletic ability, at the absolute summit, men are going to be way bigger. And this was a male college swimmer who has decided to identify as a woman. And I hope the Olympics stand up here and disallow it. But to your point,
there is a movement
to allow.
This is going to have catastrophic consequences. And like I say, this isn't just about swimming. This isn't just about golf. This also involves, once you start saying that men can compete in women's sports, it's going to have consequences in so many different areas. Safety, the locker room situation, privacy, opening up women's spaces to males. These are the consequences. And internationally, you know, it's all very well doing these shenanigans in America. It's all very well doing these shenanigans in Canada. But is the rest of the world going to be on board with this? The Olympics is on the world stage. This is going to have historical consequences. Years from now, they're going to look back at the different records. Funny enough, I actually still hold a record for my old athletics club. People can look back at that record and see that this was a record held in the girls category. However, now we're going to see, years from now, people look back at a record and literally see that it is a man in the women's category who holds that record. This is going to ruin women's sports. It's bad enough that it's ruined at a collegiate level, a local level, a national level. But this is going to ensure that women's sports is ruined internationally. Their records are going to be in danger if we start allowing males to compete. And obviously it's not just going to stop with Lia, is it? It's not just going to stop with the person who comes after Lia. We've already seen a few attempts of biological males trying to be the next Lia Thomas. Thankfully in swimming, the female athletes are speaking out and are shutting this down. But it's not going to stop. If this precedent is set and this is allowed on the world stage, it's going to open the floodgates. We've seen the floodgates open in certain sports, like women's football. Over in the UK, I think there was like over 50-something trans athletes. We've had someone with a broken knee as a result of that. We're going to see more injuries. We're going to see more records ruined. We're going to see history skewed forever. And we're going to see women basically put at risk in the locker room with men who have autogynephilia and all sorts of fetishes and motives. This is going to have a long-term real-world consequences. So it's definitely something that I'm going to continue to talk about and warn people of the implications. This isn't just about inclusion. No one is stopping you from competing in the category that aligns with your biological sex, except for ability. That's the only thing that's stopping you, is ability, is talent. Cheaters should be excluded in sports. We shouldn't accept cheaters under the guise of compassion and identity or whatever. Cheating is cheating. And that's exactly what this is. When you say, I identify as a woman, and we're supposed to forget that you're a 6'4" male who's gone through male puberty and has higher testosterone and everything else. We're supposed to forget that? Okay, so the deadline for the Paris Olympics to qualify is June 4th. You have to have qualified by June 4th. And it's unlikely that this legal action is going to be wrapped up in time for the qualification rounds. Lia would have to win this case weeks before the trials. So as it stands, this case is unlikely to affect the Paris Olympics because it's not going to be wrapped up by then. However, if Lia does end up winning this case and, being allowed to compete in the women's category, it could very well affect the next Olympics. And certainly other international events will be affected. World Championships. So World Aquatics haven't released an official statement regarding the legal action, but its executive director, Brent Nowitzki, said the World Aquatics policy on gender inclusion, adopted by World Aquatics in June of 2022, was rigorously developed on the basis of advice from leading medical and legal experts, and in careful consultation with athletes. World Aquatics remains confident that its gender inclusion policy presents a fair approach and remains absolutely determined to protect women's sports. So that's good. So this is somebody who did compete with men, wasn't nowhere near as successful while competing with other men, but that was as recent as 2019. And before you know it, they're allowed to compete in the women's category. Women's sports is worth more than that. Female athletes are worth more than that. And it needs to be protected at all levels, not just internationally. It needs to be protected at all levels. So let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves, and God willing, I will see you in the next video.